Hello and welcome to another Maturaexpress English stream. My name is Christoph and today we're gonna talk about dialogue and follow-up questions review. So, hi again. As I've mentioned in the intro, today we're gonna talk about dialogue and the follow-up questions. Basically we're doing a review of it. We have streams that cover on this topic. We also have the oral exam streams, which I'd recommend to experience the full exam, so including introduction, including task 1, the monologue. But today we're focusing on the dialogue and the follow-up questions. And to start off, I've done a overview so that you can keep track of everything what we're doing today. So we start with the dialogue, with a quick review of the dialogue. Then we're doing a review of the follow-up questions, then presenting ideas, so how to present your ideas you have and the ideas you prepared beforehand, expressing preferences, making comparisons, discussing opinions, practice of the dialogue, and the follow-up questions. So we're gonna jump right into the dialogue review. What is the dialogue? You all know it by now, hopefully, but I'm gonna revise it for you anyway. So as the name says, it is a dialogue, which means there are two persons that are speaking, that take not take place, that are discussing this matter. So a conversation of two people, not a monologue. The monologue is task 1, task 2 is the dialogue. So be sure about that you also ask questions, not only wait for a question that is thrown upon you, but also ask some questions to your examiner. It is supposed to be a constructive discussion, constructive talk about the topic you are an expert in. So be sure to keep that in mind. It's a dialogue, not a monologue, and not a situation where it's just about the examiner asking you questions about the topic, yeah, XY. So be sure to remember that when you're in your preparation time. Think about my statement, my stream of today, and then you will be fine. Task 2 of the oral exam, we already know it, but I've written it out here anyway, so that you just remember that it's the task 2, and it's, I think, one of the more difficult tasks, especially. I think it's the most difficult task of the oral exam. But of course that's depends, it's very subjective, but in my opinion it's quite difficult. So be sure to use the article for your advantage and for extra knowledge. So it's always good to mention the article, to refer to the article during the stream. That's very important, since then the examiner knows that you have knowledge about the article. not only about the topic, also about the article. And then what you're gonna do, spice it up with your own knowledge. So I've used the term spice it up because it hits the nail on its head. It's you create with your own knowledge, you can create a interesting discussion, and you can make a good impression on the examiner. Yeah, so spice it up as much as you can, of course. Add your knowledge, spice it up, and you're good to go. The last point, of course, now you're prepared to lead a constructive discussion. That's very important. Focus on dialogue. And yeah, follow these points. You're good to go. So we're gonna continue with the follow-up questions. Why are there follow-up questions? So usually the board of examiners asks the follow-up questions, asks you questions, more personal questions, but also, of course, focusing on the topic. So those questions are basically just to round up the exam, but also to assess you better, so that the board of examiners, they also need to get an impression. Therefore, the follow-up questions were integrated to the oral exams. But don't be afraid of the follow-up questions. If you already know a lot about of this topic, of any specific topic, you will be fine. But I've created some FAQs here. It actually should be FAQs, not FAQ, but it doesn't matter here. So, what is your personal opinion about? Which is a frequently asked questions by the examiner board. So if the topic is, for example, environment, the board of examiners could ask you, what is your personal opinion about plastic, or the usage of plastic straws or coffee cups, and so on and so on. And then you can go into detail, explain them why you think it's important to use your own mug, or just buy a coffee cup, a regular one. Maybe they will get back to a utterance you had during the exam. For example, it could look like this, the second point here. You mentioned in your speech, you mentioned blah 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 in your speech. What does it mean? So you mentioned ecotourism, for example. What does it mean? Or what is your most important aspect when it comes to, I don't know. But these are the questions that are stylistic, or that are very common. Be sure to take a look at any other oral exams we did in the Maturaexpress English stream, because normally we do the whole exam, and we do every task. We do the introduction, we do task 1, task 2, and the follow-up discussion. So be sure to have a look at those exams, and you will be fine, because we try to best portray you with the we try to best portray how this exam situation actually looks. So yeah, be sure to check our YouTube playlist. And then we move on to presenting ideas. So how to introduce a new idea. Basically, this slide is about if you have a new thought or want to bring in a new idea during the dialogue, you can do it with these phrases. Of course, there are other phrases. If you know any other phrases, just mention them in the comments and we will get to them or collect them for the other streams, for future streams that are on the same topic. So you could use phrases like now let me have a look at, or now let me look at this and this topic, this and that. When it comes to pollution, environment, I don't know, yeah, just use these phrases. When it comes to the carbon footprint, a lot of people don't know what it's about. So that's like an introduction phrase that brings you into the topic, that introduces the examiner to the topic, to the new topic. Apart from this, another important aspect, I've recently read an article about, maybe you haven't read an article about a typical topic. If you have read an article, and you should have read plenty of articles for the preparation of your topic, use your knowledge, use everything you know about the topic and present it. Yes, that's basically it of how it works to present new ideas. Next off, we're discussing the topic of expressing preferences. So preference is basically what's your own opinion about something. So you could also start with phrases like in my opinion. The usage of electric cars isn't that efficient, for example. Or because of something, I would suggest that, or according to this article, we already had that, of course. But you can also integrate it according to this article, which states that cigarette butts are poisoning our water or something. Yeah. And according to this study, just use it to express preferences, or basically think about what is your opinion, and then focus on this opinion of yours, which is of course your own knowledge or the knowledge of an article. Yes, that's about it with expressing preferences. Making comparisons. You all know you have the article, you have your own knowledge, you prepared everything, you have gone through it over and over again, but sometimes you just need to compare certain statements, aspects, or you name it. So of course making comparisons is very important, and you could also start off with phrases such as compared to. Of course, very basic phrase, but if you mention that if you can compare something to an aspect to another topic, it makes it more comprehensible in a way to the examiner, and it also makes it more comprehensible for the examiner that you understood your topic and that you're not just talking because you learned it by heart. And yeah, makes just a good impression. So compared to this, compared to fossil fuels, renewable energies are way much better. It's a very simple example, but you know how it work or should work. So of course you have also the phrase not only, but also. Not only, there should be actually 3 points here, not 3.3 periods. Not only does junk food decrease your life expectancy, for example, but it also increases your blood sugar. So be sure to use, if you make a comparison, and in general, not only make a comparison, be sure to use some tasty phrases. Some phrases that are gonna impress the examiner. Yeah. Another thing, or another aspect you should consider is the usage of comparatives and superlatives. So comparatives, as the name says, they compare something. So if you say, for example, Nadia's house is bigger than Mike's, that's a comparative. What is a superlative then? So Jim has the most expensive car. You should know that, how to use them. That, for example, you should focus on not to use the wrong superlatives. For example, as with adjectives as good, better, best. There is no good, goodest, gooder or something. So just be sure to know that. Bad, worse, and so on. Be sure you have to be rock solid on that. That's not a mistake you should make. You should know that already. But use comparatives and superlatives. I've outlined them here, even higher than the highest amount of something, or the US has the highest rate of, I don't know. But you get the point. And if you want to, forgot what I wanted to say. If you want to have a closer look, can't remember what I was going to say, but maybe I'll remember it later. But I'm gonna move on to the next slide, which is about discussing options. So, which is about thinking about other aspects that could also be necessary for this topic. Of course, this is very specific, but I think you need to touch upon, or you don't have to, but it is good to touch upon other aspects that are maybe not mentioned in the article. But of course, that is, again, if you have a strong knowledge about the topic and you're interested in the topic, or you have done good research on the topic beforehand, then this won't be a problem. So discussing options, so what is there, yeah, think about other aspects maybe that are connected, and incorporate your own knowledge, which is the focus, of course. From your own opinion, discuss it with the form your own opinion. It should be form your own opinion. I'm sorry about that. I typo. And yeah, an example would be, although electric cars are advertised to be more eco-friendly than normal cars, so fuel-driven cars, petrol-driven cars, no one discusses how much carbon dioxide is emitted only for the production of such cars. For example, it's your own opinion, it's discussing options, and try to have a critical stance, and try to stay with your stance, which means, in other words, that don't jump from one point of view to another. You have your stance, and this is your stance, and you're gonna discuss it. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna do some excerpts, or I'm gonna show you some excerpts from the oral exams. We did actually which is in this case an exam about social networking. Of course, this is task 2, the dialogue. Remember, there is not actually a time frame where you have to complete your dialogue or finish it up, as with the monologue. So the dialogue is, there's no time limit actually. The examiner tells you when to stop, or will tell you when to stop. In this case, or with this exam, task 2 was about social media, and that is the oral exam. I want to go back. Yeah, is as follows. So the instructions were as follows. After your talk, you hold a discussion focusing on social media, its benefits and drawbacks. Use the information from the attached text, blah blah blah, blah, as well as your own ideas during the conversation. So again, your own ideas and article. Be sure to check out our streams on how to best focus on what you're going to do, or what your task is. So this example, it's to hold a discussion focusing on social media, so not about environment or pollution, it's about social media, the benefits and drawbacks. So be sure to know what the topic is, or what the instruction says. Read it carefully, you have preparation time, and try to work your way around, not work your way around, try to focus on these instructions, and then it will be fine. The link here is from the BBC, that's the attached article we actually used with the demonstration exams. in this case, it's about the positives and negatives of using social networking sites. As always, the article is not too long, so it's easy to work your way through the article and highlight everything that is important. Yeah, that's how it normally looks. Of course, you don't have a link with your oral exams. You have the printed out, you have a sheet of paper with the article on it. But I just wanted to show you that this is how it looks, and yeah, you can always go back on our playlists, oral exams, or of course of this stream, and have a look how it's done, how the dialogue is done. Yes, and the last thing we're gonna talk about is the demonstration of follow-up questions. Also practice. Today we can't do the demonstration, but as I've mentioned, the follow-up discussion, the follow-up questions, if you want to know about a real-life situation, kind of go to the oral exams of the English streams, and then you'll have a lot material to watch through. And yeah, how does it look? Follow-up discussions always are the instruction or are written out like this. So after the role play, take an active part in a short discussion. It's a really short, brief discussion, so don't worry about the length of it. It's not going to be 20 minutes or something. About, in this case, the topic communication with your examiners. In this case, normally it's the board of examiners. Do we have any questions?
No.
Okay. They're going to ask you some questions, and you should ask them some questions too. And you should ask us questions if you want to, of course. Yeah. So just be sure to know what the topic is, and then the board of examiners is going to ask you questions that I've already mentioned. Yeah, it depends on the examiners, of course, what they want to ask you, but basically those questions are about the topic in general, so not about what's in the article on page 2 or something. They won't do that. So what does paragraph 4 in the article? It's not about that. It's just to round up the exam, to test you on your knowledge, on your specific knowledge of the topic, on your overall knowledge of the topic. That's basically the examiner board decides what they want to ask. So I can tell you that we try to best present you how it looks, and we all took part in the exams. We watched the students take the exams, so we can only present you our experience we have, and normally that's how they did it, the examiner board. Yeah, and that's basically it from today's stream of the revision of the follow-up and the dialogue of the exams. As always, if you have any questions, write in the chat, or write an email, what you want, and we gonna see each other on Monday next week. And yeah, have a nice evening and goodbye.